Do you want more mobile shoulders? Maybe you've got tightness in and around the shoulders. Maybe you're wanting to overhead press better, or maybe you just want healthier shoulders. Well, what we're going to do in this tutorial is look at 3 exercises that can help you get more mobile shoulders. Exercise number 1, we're going to start with a kettlebell. We're going to start also down on the knees, because what we're trying to avoid is any compensation from somewhere else in the body. If we come down on the knees, we can take a lot of what the legs can do out of the equation. So for example, when we go overhead, you can tend to push forward like so, putting a little bit of extra extension not only through the hip but also through the spine. When we come down onto the knees, it pretty much takes that out of the equation. So we're going to start down on the knees. What we're also going to do is hold a kettlebell upside down in front of us. What we're then going to do is take the shoulders through as full a range of movement as possible. So first of all, we've got to understand what we can do. So basically we're going around the head. So we're going to lift up the arm. We're going to come around the back. Now we've got elbows up as high as we can get them. Then we're coming round the front and we're sort of coming back to the start position. Now, what we are looking to do is first of all understand what range of movement we've got. So we're just going around, okay, this is what I've got, this is what I can cope with. Have I got any stretching around the shoulders? If not, then we can start to then add in the progressions. So what we would then start to do is come into this position, and then we're keeping it as close to the head as possible. So if I come to a side view, we're going to keep it as close to the head as possible, getting the elbow up as high as we can. When we get into this position, again, we want the kettlebell behind the shoulder, because now we're going to start challenging the rotator cuffs, the lats, the triceps, all these different muscles to start to stretch. All the ones that are in and around the rotator cuffs, in and around the armpit, in and around the shoulder joint to come around. Now this is the important bit, because this is the bit that's going to feel the most restricted. And basically we're looking to get the weight as far down the back as we can, because that is going to get both the elbows up as high as we can. So in the start of the movement, we're just focusing on one shoulder. As we get halfway through the movement, it's both shoulders, and then it's back onto that single shoulder again. So we go up, around, get the kettlebell behind the shoulder. Then we're looking to get the kettlebell as far down the back as possible, getting a good stretch through the shoulders. But what we're also doing is not only through the shoulders, as I mentioned, when we come into this position, it forces us to extend at the shoulder. So we've got the 3 areas of the body that we're really focusing on, which is the shoulder joint, which is what we talked about, thoracic spine, and the shoulder blade. So to complete the movement, we go around, behind, both elbows up, and then basically the same, but over here, but coming forward rather than backwards. When we get to here, we're going to go back the way we came. So we're then going to reverse that and around. The only things to watch, as I mentioned at the start, when we're up on our feet, we're more liable to hyperextend. So to push the hips forward, extend more at the hips. That's all we've got to watch happening here, because what we want to try and do is come into this position and keep knee, hip and shoulder and even head all in line. Again, try not to sort of poke your head as you go around the back, because all these are little compensations. If you can't make that movement going around the head, you'll push your head forward because your shoulders and your thoracic spine hasn't got the range of movement to be able to get around the back. So you'll create all these different compensations. So basically you want your knee, your hip, your shoulder and your ear or your head all to stay in line. So you're then forcing your thoracic spine, your shoulder blades and your shoulder joint to do the work and get all the way around the head. Obviously being down on 2 knees is slightly more challenging. If you come up onto 1 knee and do the exercise in this position, it's a little bit easier. So if you do find yourself struggling on 2 knees, do come up into the 1 knee or the half kneeling stance and do exactly the same. The only thing you get then is a balance issue. So by coming nice wide stance, balance issues out, it's slightly easier on the hips and the lower spine. And then you get all the different work through the muscles and through all those 3 joints, the T-spine, the shoulder blades and the shoulder joint. Exercise number 2, we're going to be using this bar. We're going to go down onto 1 knee, and again we're going to be focusing on the T-spine, the scapula or the shoulder blades and the shoulder joint. The only difference here, where we were looking more at extension of the upper back or the upper spine, or the thoracic spine I should say, we're going to be focusing on extension and rotation. So we're going to be getting a lift of the chest, a rotating of the chest, but also, like before, the scapula and the shoulder blades are going to be involved. So we're going to come down onto one knee. Now, as I mentioned before with the last one, coming into a half kneeling stance, you can have a balance issue. So to mitigate that, we're going to go wide. Now, we're then going to take a bar or a broom handle or something that we can hold on to each end of and come into this position. Because what we've now got is a rotated spine. What we're then going to do is take this, bring it up so it's parallel with the floor now, front to back, parallel to the floor. We're then going to push it up and round and come into this position. Now this is tackling a little bit more anterior deltoid, pec type of area, but what we're able to do with that, if we do feel restriction there, is we push it with the back hand. So we come into this position and we come into there. And now I'm starting to push with my back hand, this hand, I'm starting to push this front hand, this hand, through. And then I come back down, but I'm also getting thoracic extension coming through here. What you may also find is a little bit of a stretch coming through this area, because again, we're taking that shoulder away, we're extending the spine, so you may find a stretch also coming through the hip flexor. But hopefully that will gain range of movement in the psoas, and the psoas joins into T12, and then it has fibers that go up into the diaphragm as well. So again, getting that full extension is only going to help extending the vertebra above T12, 11 to 1 as well. So we want to be able to get into this position, rotate across and come back. Rotate across, again just pushing it a little bit further. But what we've got to remember, if I now go the other way, is we want to get the movement from the torso. So what we don't want to do is just do that from the arms. What we want to be able to do is get that whole system working, turn the torso into that position. So what we're doing, essentially, if we look at the torso, we're going from that position to that position, that position to that position. And then we're just taking the arms around, getting the anterior part of the shoulder, but you're also getting rhomboids, rotator cuff, lats as well, stretching. So exercise number 2 is half kneeling, rotation with a bar. Exercise number 3 is the Turkish get-up. Now this is great for not only shoulder mobility, but also shoulder stability as well. And it's slightly different to the previous 2 exercises, because with the one where we go around the head and then the rotation, what we're doing is we're taking the shoulders around the torso as a way of describing it. What we're now going to do is take the torso around the shoulder. So what's going to happen is we're going to come down into our Turkish get-up position. So this is how we start. What we're then going to do is roll up onto the side. Now, how the torso goes around the kettlebell is the fact that the arm stays vertical. So here it's in quite a stable position, but as we roll to here, it comes into a much more unstable position. So it's a little bit more vulnerable to instability. So we get to that point. What we're then going to do is come up onto the elbow, and then up onto the hand. Now this is where we need the mobility, because I need to extend my spine, I need to be able to keep my arm vertical, and then I can reduce it when I come into this position. Bring it through, and then again, when I come upright, I've got to get my arm as vertical as I can get it, the kettlebell over the shoulder. So that requires good thoracic spine, good scapular rhomboid, trapezius, being able to get pulled down, and also good extension through the lats, the pecs and the deltoid to be able to get into that position. Now I'm not going to go all the way up, but you can if you want to, but you don't need to, because again that's just coming up into the standing position. With regards to the mobility of the shoulder, we are good all the way up until half kneeling. and relax into that position. So if I go again, I'll talk you through it again. So again, the torso, again, it's sort of, let's just say at 90 degrees. When I roll, it goes to almost 180 degrees. Let's just say 150, 160 degrees. So we go from this position, we roll up. Here, this is the big one. Here, extend the spine. Lift up, leg through, up again, vertical arm. And then we will reverse our way back down. So the Turkish get-up, not only is it going to mobilize the shoulder when we get into that rolled and sat up position and then up on the half kneeling, but it's also going to stabilize the shoulder. So what is then going to happen is you're then going to get good, not only mobility into the muscles, but good stability into the muscles, which is essentially what a healthy shoulder is, which then allows you to build strength on top. So once you've got the mobility and the stability, you can start building the strength on top of that. Those are my 3 exercises for better shoulder mobility. You've got going down into the tall kneeling position on both knees and then going round in the halo. You've then got the half kneeling, rotating around, doing sort of a reverse chop type movement, and then you've got the Turkish get-up, which is then going to put the stability into it, which then will allow you to start strengthening, or first of all getting a healthy shoulder and then start strengthening on top of that. If you've enjoyed this tutorial, hit the like button below. If you've learned something new, please do hit the thanks button. If you want to watch more of videos like this, hit the subscribe button and the bell icon. If you've got a question or a comment, please do leave it below.